Welcome everybody to episode 10 of Soar and Pair, Why Not Together?
Hello.
Hi there. We are going to be talking today about getting clear on abundance. But before we talk about that, what does Soar and Pair mean? I think we've been really trying to really express our vision to everybody. And Soar and Pair means this: we're soaring together to explore new adventures while inspiring others to create their own. So really it's about us taking that journey together and everybody seeing that, there's nothing that incredibly special about us. We're just a couple of ordinary people having fun.
I think we're special.
Well, I would say that, but I don't want to come across, hey, I'm special.
We're special.
We are special.
To us.
But really, we simply want to take you with us on this fun little journey. So we're already to week 10, episode 10. We've been doing an episode every week. I know. Time has flown by, so...
If I had a mic, I'd drop it.
Well, don't drop that mic, please. But let's talk a little bit about the week that we've gone through. It's been an interesting week, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a whirlwind of a week. Busy.
Yes.
I think we say that every week, too.
I know, it just...
Seems like it.
more and more, but a really interesting experience I had last night is I had a reunion with 3 childhood friends from the Riverside Drive Elementary School in Studio City, California. So we had a Zoom meeting. My friend, I've talked about it before, Scott Tucker, is in China. My friend Rick Winslow in California, and his brother, who I also was close friends with, Kevin, was in St. Louis, and we're in Arizona. So the 4 of us got together. It was morning for Scott, it was night for us, and
the next day.
Yeah, the morning, the
Scott.
next day. It's strange how that works. But we ended up talking for almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was just, and like no time went by.
It's so great that you guys reconnected like this.
We told each other's story. We went over memories. There was some sad moments. There was some funny moments. I think everybody should have that experience. I really, this is 46 years later, 45 years later.
You just aged yourself.
I know. 1976, actually. Kevin reminded me that he remembers spending the bicentennial at my house swimming pool party, July 4th, 1976. So it's been quite a while. So I
was 6 years old.
Thank you for. Well, I wasn't that much older. But I am grateful for them, and the connection, I think, is just been a wonderful experience. So thank you guys. Thank you, Rick, Kevin, and Scott, and Rick's wife Anna for setting up the Zoom meeting.
It was great meeting you, all of you.
Yes, Sandy popped in to say hi, and I'm going to cherish that for the rest of my life. So that was incredible for me. How about you?
So work is changing for me again, and I found out I'm getting a new supervisor, which is my old supervisor, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and just changes constantly because of COVID and restructuring of teams, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And also I've been working on the energy healing with people over the phone, and that's picking up some speed too. So it's really fun to see both worlds kind of coming together. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, that is. And speaking of your job, my job as well, I'm stepping into...
Always have to one-up, don't you?
Not trying to... No, but it's true. It's interesting because you and I have both, we're both stepping into we're staying with the same employer, but stepping into very new positions with new bosses. And mine next week is on Tuesday, stepping into being in charge over operations in the north part of the state for unemployment insurance, which includes 300 mostly new workers. and
It's a big job.
I'm excited. I'm nervous, but I have a great team of people around me,
You're gonna rock it.
and great people already. And there's so much to do, but I think we're gonna do great. So.
They're just doing amazing work. All the work you guys are doing, just to really reach out to people and help people through this time. To your health and your money. These are big topics here. So
It really, really is, and I think we feel that responsibility. I know people are working through the weekend, even on Monday, to get so that people benefits can be released. So
yeah,
kudos to all those folks that are working so hard through the weekend. I am taking the weekend off because
yay.
I needed it. So that's a little scary, but it's also an opportunity to really try to bring what I can to the table to help those folks do the best they can. But with you, also back to your energy healing, you're kind of jumping into another part of energy healing,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm super excited. I am taking a class on medical intuitive. So that will pair real nicely with my nursing history and the energy work I'm doing. It's something that I'm really doing already, but to take it a level deeper so I can really do that work with people and give them the best direction I can.
So for those who don't understand what a medical intuitive is, and I think I understand it, but in your own words, how would you describe that to somebody who's like, what's a medical intuitive? What does medical have to do with intuition?
Well, it's really about tapping into the person I'm working with for whatever they have going on, and kind of seeing where the blockages are and helping them to release that, without drugs or any kind of other intervention, just to help release that, because all dis-ease has to do with blockages of energy, and we can tap into that in different ways, and I can kind of pick up on things that way and help give them direction as to how to take care of this themselves, how to be more proactive with their own health, and to just take control of their own lives and their own health.
And yet you're still
There's
very
a
much
story.
you're still very much in the medical world, so you're not abandoning that either.
No,
right?
no, not at all. If anything, this is just a beautiful layer that's an addition to, it's integrative. So, integrative healing.
Like a 7-layer cake, right? All these-
Pretty much.
Thinking of that chocolate cake in Claim Jumper, that's
Right.
so huge. But
Just ridiculously huge. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. What I find interesting about you is it's almost a compromise approach, and I don't mean compromise in a negative way. What I mean is the approach is there is validity to the medical world and everything that you've learned as a nurse and what you've
Absolutely.
done,
Yeah.
but there is validity in holistic
Absolutely.
healing, and then there is validity, as I say it 3 times, in the intuitive energetic work, right?
Yes.
So isn't it
Yes.
about
It's being the bridge between those disciplines and bringing them together, being the bridge to tie them together so that someone doesn't have to abandon the medication that they need, or they don't have to abandon the approach, the holistic approach that they prefer. But when I heard once that if the disease or disorder, if the vibration of that matches the vibration of the medication, then you go with the medication. If it doesn't, if you can go with a higher vibration of like an energy healing, then you go with that. So it's not about abandoning one or the other, it's complementary.
right? Which I think is an interesting approach, and I think you'll bring that to the table as you bring your RN experience, because you've done that
Yes.
for 17 years now, 16 years, am I right? And
17, yeah.
yeah, so all that RN experience from working at a hospital and a hospice and a chemo nurse and everything that you've done,
Mhm.
and actually seeing people get better, and yet that the intuition that you have, that gift that you have for sensing things as well, right?
Yeah.
Bringing that to the table.
Yeah, and we all have it. It's about learning to recognize it in ourselves, and that's really something I want to do, is helping people to, that's how I want to empower people to know, to recognize the signs within themselves, because I think we tend to just gloss over them and ignore them, not realizing our body will scream until it's heard.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, it's super exciting. It's, I'm feel like I'm finally stepping into being able to do the nursing I was meant to do.
Yes, it is, and I think your plan in the near future is to start, offering appointments.
Yes, it is, and I've talked about this a few times, but with school and with the COVID and everything that happened, it kind of keeps getting pushed out, and so I have to be flexible. So I'm continuing my education right now, but I will be starting to take appointments soon. I think when I'm done with the medical intuitive course, then I'll start booking more appointments at that time. So it'll be probably about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
By the end of the summer. But in the meantime, I'm still taking appointments now. I just can't book myself solid.
Right. So
I
if
am
someone
doing
reaches out to you through Facebook or through,
Absolutely.
you would consider, and they don't have to. It's not is it an in-person thing or not?
No, it's not. I can do this over the phone. I can do it over Zoom, over our computers. There's many ways that we can do it, so I'm flexible there as well. And we don't have to be in person. In fact, a large portion of what I do will not be in person, but I do want to talk to people and have that appointment where we have the chat and kind of the assessment and figure out what we're going to do together, because I want to make sure I'm honoring where the person wants to go, not where I want to go.
Right. And isn't it interesting that when the coronavirus happened and your school shifted from in-person to Zoom classes,
Yep.
You even mentioned to me how that was actually
I was so
an
excited.
amazing coincidence.
It really was, because that's one thing. When I started class, I was just like, oh, I wish they offered something, because I knew that a large portion of my business would be online, and I wish that they gave more instruction that way, and now we got it.
Right.
And so I really do see it as kind of a gift that we were given this right now.
Yeah.
It's an extra layer to our education we wouldn't have gotten.
Which is great, because with the restrictions of the coronavirus, you don't have to, have somebody in a room and
You don't.
Be concerned about that.
And people wonder how that is. Sometimes people are like, how does that even happen? Where your focus goes, energy flows. Just paying attention, focusing on something, that's where the energy goes. If think about it this way, if you are thinking of someone and they pick up the phone and call you,
Mm-hmm.
that connection, that energy connection has been established. And really, it's that simple.
Good.
So
That's interesting. That's beautiful. So I think it's going to be exciting. And, again, one of the purposes of our YouTube channel, podcast Soar and Pair, is to highlight the direction you're going, because we really wanted to take people from the very beginning, before you really started booking appointments
on
and
the whole
everything.
journey.
Right.
Yeah, for both of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And speaking of me for a moment, because we can't go very long without back to me.
Back to me, because after all.
After all, tomorrow's Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been invited most years down to a Memorial Day celebration in Casa Grande at the J. Warren Funeral Home Cemetery, where they have a beautiful veterans memorial that they've done every year, and they have a flyover. Well, because of the whole coronavirus, they are still going to do it, but they're going to live stream it.
Nice.
Through their Facebook page.
That's nice, because people look forward to this every year, I know.
Right, and so you are going to live stream on our Soar and Pair Facebook.
I am.
At least the performance of Gone But Not Forgotten, which is an original song I wrote 11 years ago or 10
Have
years ago.
your tissues ready. Makes me cry every time.
And it is a beautiful song that really does thank the veterans who paid the ultimate price, which is
Yeah.
really what Memorial Day is all about. And my good friend Brad Kepler in Casa Grande will be singing that with me. We'll actually sing it as a duet.
Nice.
So hopefully, if the sound works and everything else, it'll come across as good as it.
How many years have you done this?
Well, off and on since 2010. So not every year, but
Okay.
I would say this is probably the 7th or 8th time that, and usually there's 300 or 400 people there. So this
Yeah.
will be done digitally, of course. They'll have all the ceremony honoring the different branches and military folks who have passed in that
It's a
area.
beautiful thing.
So I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be
Mhm.
a great thing. And one thing I wanted to mention, I didn't expect to say this, but I just found out 2 years ago, because people have asked me, anyone in your family served in the military? And I'm like, not that I'm aware of, but I found out that I had a long lost uncle that served in World War II, was a prisoner of war, and when he was finally rescued on his way back to America, he passed away on the boat ride back.
Mhm.
So to have a POW World War II veteran, it was my dad's sister's husband, so an uncle, was very sobering to find that out. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to me that it just connects with Memorial Day.
You've
for me.
always been so connected to the veterans. The music that you've written, you've always been very involved
Right,
with
the work
veterans.
that we do in the state government, which is always
Mhm.
helping veterans find jobs and dealing with veterans who are needing assistance on unemployment. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So we want to look at our Facebook page. It'll probably be somewhere after 9:30 that we
Yeah.
do that.
And like Jim said, I will have Facebook Live going for a few of those songs, and then the rest of it I'll do photos.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
It'll be great.
it will
It'll be
be.
great. So let's talk about. I mentioned at the top of our podcast. We're talking about abundance, or clearing up what abundance is. So let's talk a little bit about when we first grew up and
Loaded.
yes. So and when people talk about abundance, they usually refer to money. So let's talk about money for a little bit.
Mhm.
What was it like for you growing up in terms of that aspect of abundance?
Well, I grew up, we never had a lot of money, and I didn't really have any direction with money. I really wasn't taught how to manage money or how to take care of things. What I was taught was what not to do. The example I had in my home was not a great one on how to handle money, and I worked. I started working when I was 12, 13, and I would hand over my checks. So I didn't even get to handle my own money.
Right.
I handed my checks over to the household. So that's an awful young age, but aside from that, I never even learned how to handle what I was earning. So when I was married, I really had to learn from scratch. Yeah, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I think, and how it affected you.
Yeah, well, you can imagine, right? I didn't know how to handle money, and so it was hard. Well, first off, handing over your money at that age is tough anyway, but not knowing, it was hard to learn how. I had to try and fail multiple times.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of rough getting started with that, but I think I've finally gotten past that.
Right. And for me, in my childhood, it was interesting. A little bit of contrast. We were always well taken care of. My dad was ultra conservative, very careful with his money.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he was so careful with his money that I always felt like, we were always too poor to get anything.
Yeah.
Although I was always taken care of, so I mean, this is just a little kid saying, you know,
Kids' perspectives.
right.
Yeah.
However, you know, we didn't live poorly. We lived very conservatively, and so I think something that rings in my head that my dad used to always say is, "Money doesn't grow on trees."
My grandparents, yes.
I think it's from the Depression. My
It's
dad,
from the same era, exactly.
my dad was a teenager when the Depression happened.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, to his credit, he did really well at managing his money. But I was really surprised when my dad passed away. I guess I'll mention it. He passed away 22 years ago today. I was surprised how much money he had set aside. I mean, it was...
That generation, they lived frugally and they squirreled away every penny they had, didn't they?
Right, and I, you know, so the way I think it affected me when I started having to handle money as a young father, young family, everything was very tight and budgeted, and you know, could never cross that line, which in one way is good, but I think what happened over the years is I almost felt tied by that. I almost felt,
It does.
you know, like
It follows you. For sure.
it just really I couldn't break the pattern of the fear of, you know, not having enough, or the fear of, you know, not paying a bill, or grinding it out. The other thing my dad taught me, and grind it out, work hard.
Yeah.
For every dollar, you know, I mean,
there's something to be said for that. There really is,
Yeah.
but it does become the chains
right.
around you. It weighs you down, and yeah, I can see that.
And in my previous marriage, I worked 6-7 days a week. At one point, I was working 3 jobs and doing what I had to do. And I just, it's been really hard to sort of break that, because now later in my life I don't have to work so hard, but I'm almost like, who would I be if I didn't work?
If you weren't grinding it out every day.
Working 6,
Yeah.
7 days a week. And so I found that an interesting byproduct of kind of that, you know, and that's partly my dad. My dad worked.
Well, and coming to terms with it's okay to be abundant,
Right.
right? Did that put, did the way you grew up, what kind of restrictions did it put on your thinking? I mean, I guess you kind of reviewed that, but...
Well, I mean, what it really did, I think, for me is really concentrate on the limitations and you know, the fact that I could never get above a certain amount, and so
if you did, you felt guilty about it, right?
yeah, and I think when a lot of money did come my way, whether it was an inheritance or what have you, you know, I don't think I handled it well. You know, it just it slipped through my fingers, and back to the, you know, the paycheck to paycheck kind of mentality. And
this is where I belong, is in this slot, not allowing yourself to rise.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just figured this is the way life is, and so this is how I'm going to approach it. But you know, I think there was too much of a fixation on, you know, how much is in the account, what are the bills coming up, what, you know, and so I think when you're over fixated on that, it just, to me, it takes all the fun out of things. You constantly, you feel like you have the weight of financial worry on your shoulders
Well, and
constantly.
that just creates more lack.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because what you focus on, like we said earlier, where your focus is where the energy goes, and if your focus is so tight, you're not allowing room to grow.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got together 9 years ago, you really helped me, because I really think you have done a really good job of taking the challenges in your childhood and learning how to be who you are, and to accept, and to be open. I feel like I've had a hard time letting go of that restrictive conservative part because it worked for me for so many years. Right?
And that makes it harder to let go.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Where,
You've done great though. You have.
well, thank you. And you've helped me kind of just look at things differently, because I think it doesn't come down to, are you going to get a raise, are you going to get promoted? I mean, all that has happened in my career, but it's, I think, the attitude that one has in terms of how they look at everything, right?
Yeah, and recognizing too, at the end of the day, I don't care how many zeros you have in your bank account, you're the same Jim, or I'm the same Sandy, you know, we're the same people. Zeros are zeros.
I wouldn't mind 7 though. 6
Oh,
or
I
7.
wouldn't either, and I'm open to that. But, yeah, you know, I have a quick story
Okay.
regarding that. Years ago, I was working in a grocery store, and this really good-looking fireman came up to me, and he wanted to ask me out. And so degrading. He actually opened his checkbook and showed me all the zeros. And I mean, I was just flabbergasted by it. And I was just like, you know, that's really too bad. I'm not going to go out with you. Because he was so focused on it. That's kind of the flip side, you know, is becoming so focused on too much, having too much, or too little, puts you in a prison.
Right. And so I think in this conversation, and you know, we've kind of talked about how money's affected us growing up, and I think all of us have that, you know, those stories, for better or for worse. We all have to kind of work out that relationship with money. We can't get away from it. We need money to pay bills. We need, you know, money makes the world go round, but money is just the vehicle that we use to really
right,
you know, deal with life in exchange for services and goods. And
it's an energetic exchange. Exactly.
But abundance is more than money, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's so much more than money. Money is a very small piece of the abundance pie.
Right.
To me, abundance is more about how you feel, your connection to your higher source, the clarity and the connection, the clean line, but you know, through your body, the openness that you have for people and for each other, for yourself, all these things. It's so much. It's love,
right.
Abundance and love.
Well, and to add to that, I think it's the appreciation that we have for everything.
Absolutely.
Because you know, the old saying, you know, the glass is half full.
It's refillable.
You could look at it as half empty, half full, and you know, you can always get in that game of wanting more. And why not appreciate? And I think part of the thing that the COVID virus has done is helped us appreciate what we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because when there's less distractions, and you're thinking more, and you're at your home, you're like, well, but these are all the blessings I do have.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but as long as the want doesn't get in the way of the appreciation of what you have.
Yeah.
Because you have to have something to strive towards, right?
Right.
However, keeping it in perspective.
Yeah, and I feel like that what we are doing in Soar and Pair is something that I would say is, so, you know, it's more than money. It's the abundance of enjoying life together. It's the abundance of appreciating each other, what we're doing to fearlessly pursue the dreams that we have, to not get stagnant and stuck in life where you just feel like there's no, you know, freshness anymore.
Right.
So I think, and I feel more abundant, not because our bank account may be more or less than it used to be, but I feel more abundant because of the fact that you and I have dove into this pool and decided, you know what, we're going to swim together. Yep. We're going to see what happens. You know, we're going to do this weekly podcast. You know, we're going we're going to pursue these dreams. You're going to pursue your energy healing, and I'm going to continue with my music while we're working, and let's see what happens.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I think what I've noticed with you is as you have dropped those chains and released them by layers, the more you open up, the more things roll in.
Right.
So that's important to remember too, is that you have to let go of the chains that you have, or the restrictions that you have in whatever way that is, to allow things to come in. And I mean not just money, but opportunities and people and friendships. It just comes in from everywhere as you open up. It's cool.
Thank you, and I see the same thing with you. And I think back to your energy healing really quick. I feel like the purpose of what you are doing is to help people find that inner abundance.
Yes.
That will lead to the outer or will enhance the outer abundance. Because
Yes.
isn't it really the inner first?
Absolutely. It always goes back to here first. You got to go within before you can deal with the outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most famous stories of a rich person who had all the money in the world but had no abundance was Scrooge, right?
Right.
Scrooge was, and everybody laughs about that in the Christmas story, but it really does make the point that he became abundant. He became abundant when he realized that it really was more about life and connection and people than all the wealth he had amassed and accumulated and the people he had stepped on to get there.
Yeah.
And I feel, one of the things I want to share is I feel very abundant at work because of the connections and the people that I have.
Yes.
I had to say goodbye to my team of supervisors I'd worked with the past 2 years, and the connection and abundance with them was huge. It was not easy to do, you know?
It's hard.
Right.
It is hard.
And then the abundance with my childhood friends, the connection, the joy, the laughter, the memories. I think when we step back and look at those things, we realize that it's not even up to the zeros. It's not up to the fame. It's not any of those things. It's the sheer joy of appreciating what's right in front of you at the moment and feeling it from your head to your toes.
Yeah. And who are you at the end of the day? You're still the same person, but you're richer for taking that time to do your own inventory.
Right.
To really appreciate all those different layers. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And I think we found a couple beautiful quotes that we want to end this segment with that actually that you found. I'm going to let you go ahead and read them about abundance.
Okay.
Yes.
The first one is, like the air you breathe, abundance in all things is available to you. Your life will simply be as good as you allow it to be. And that's Abraham Hicks.
I love that. Your life will simply be as good as you allow it to be.
Right.
And I think that allowing is what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Allowing more to come in.
Right.
In every way.
Instead of holding on to something and restricting the flow. It's like opening yourself up, your mind up, your emotions up to allow the flow.
And opening yourself up to the surprise, because it's, that or something better kind of idea. As you open yourself up without restriction, might surprise you. Right?
I have been surprised, yes.
Yeah. The next one, I really like this one. One common mistake is to think one reality is the reality. You must always be prepared to leave the one reality for a greater one. And that's Mother Mira.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think what I've experienced is leaving the reality of restriction and conservatism to where it's to something of more openness and allowing. And so I think all of us have to, to have that caterpillar to butterfly experience when it comes to this.
And it's always changing. That's the thing, is I don't think we're ever done. But being the same person, no matter where you find yourself, that's your constant, and then you're more prepared for whatever comes.
Absolutely. So let's lighten this up with the Sandyism. Yes, there's always there's so many to choose from, and we've done quite a few, but this one is just kind of a fun one. Something that when you first started saying, I'm like, what? I'd say, what do you think about that?
Another one. I think you've said this before.
You'd say, cool beans, jelly beans. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, that's cool beans. And
Cool beans, jelly beans.
And that was just your way of saying, yeah, I like that. But yeah, again, why? Who knows? It's just, it's the Sandyism that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. Like jelly beans.
Yes, exactly. Counting your jelly beans. Oh, wow. So, no, I am grateful for you. I just want to say right now, I feel abundant. I am grateful for this journey that we're taking as Soren pair, and already, life is just getting richer and richer, and I would encourage people to just jump in and try something new, just like you and I have been doing. But thank you for being you, and for jumping into this fun experience and adventure together in podcasting and YouTubing.
I love it, and I love doing this with you, so thank you.
Awesome. And we just want to remind you that, of course, we have a YouTube channel that you can not only like, but make comments on or questions for us, as well as all the podcast platforms that we are on, from Spotify to Google Podcast, Podchaser to Stitcher, Overcast to, all of those. Please listen to us, because, again, you can either see our faces or hear our voices. Right. That's why we do both platforms. But like, subscribe, and reach out to us also on our Facebook page. Like, again, as a reminder, tomorrow you will be able to see the Memorial Day performance.
Enjoy your Memorial Day this weekend, and I hope everybody is safe and enjoying each other, your families, and the holiday. One thing, stay safe out there. Make sure you're using sunblock. The sun is much stronger right now, and I think it's because we don't have as much smog, excuse me. The air is clearer, so those rays are coming through strong. So Take care of yourselves and each other. Pay attention to that.
Thank you, everybody. We will catch you next week. Have a wonderful week, and happy Memorial Day to all of you.
Have a great week.
Take care.